Hey, what's up, guys? Montero on Rooftops, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Back in the old hood. Actually staying at a hotel just a few blocks from where I used to live. Used to live south of here, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks. Anyway, I'm in town for the weekend just for a wedding. And Tiff and I are flying back to Atlanta tomorrow, Tuesday. Normally, here on Monday is when you guys get the neutral corner. And of course, I can't shoot it while I'm out here in town for this wedding. Couldn't bring my equipment or whatever. So I wanted to ask you guys, would you rather me do a late episode of the neutral corner, probably be posted early Wednesday morning, depending on what part of the world you live in? Or would you rather me do a super loaded episode next Monday, back on its usual day and time, with 2 weeks worth of reviews and news and notes and everything? So let me know what you guys think. I could do either one, man. It just, you guys would get a late episode. A little haphazard here the last few days. I've been checking my emails, messages, chatting with a few people, but I'm still behind. I mean, I don't have all the news and everything with me. Of course, I saw Callum Smith won, beat George Groves. And, you know, back when the World Boxing Super Series was first announced, it's going back a while, I actually picked Callum Smith to win that tournament. I remember that. It was actually on a neutral corner. I can't tell you which episode. I'd have to go back and look for it, dig in the crates. But as the tournament went on, you know, Callum Smith didn't look great, and George Groves looked better and better. And I actually slightly favored George Groves last week. I kind of went back on my pick. It was really between those two, though, right? We kind of all knew. And I thought at one point it started to buy into the Eubanks hype, Eubank Jr. hype. But we saw, you know, he got exposed for what he was. But Callum Smith, that tournament, it was his to win, and he did what he was supposed to do. So obviously he's been fighting down to the level of his opposition recently, but he looked really good against George Groves, set up his shots well, fought the fight of his career so far. So there are more levels to him. Is he the best super middleweight in the world right now? I don't know. We can argue that. He's probably the most accomplished. That win over George Groves is probably the best win. Any better win than what Gilberto Ramirez has, Benavidez, and he has all his issues right now. Even Uzcategui, who has that win over Durrell, I don't know if that's as good as what Callum Smith did against George Groves. I think clearly Callum Smith has the best win right now in the division, but there's no clear #1 champ in my opinion. I'm up here on the roof, by the way, at this hotel, and I'm not supposed to be up here, so I'm just looking over there to make sure security don't kick me out. I snuck up here. Anyway, yeah, Callum Smith is #1, but is he the champion right now? I know Ring Magazine, we gave him the championship because Groves was rated #1. I think Smith was rated #3, so I get it, but I want to see Zurdo Ramirez and Callum Smith fight. I want to see that fight. I think that is one of the better fights that could be made in boxing, and I hope we can see something like that. Politics, though, might get in the way. We will see. What else? Billy Joe Saunders obviously made news, testing positive for a banned, prohibited drug. Now, Frank Warren, the promoter, put out a statement talking about the difference between in-competition and out-of-competition testing. I wanted to hint on that real quick. I'll go into this way more in depth on the neutral corner. But, okay, UCAD, which is basically the UK's version of USADA, they follow WADA's protocol, right? WADA sets the protocol for everything. And WADA has a in-competition prohibited list and an out-of-competition prohibited list. So basically for a boxer, what that means is if you don't have a fight scheduled and you're not in training camp officially for a fight, you are quote unquote out of competition. And under WADA's rules, there's a different list of drugs that are prohibited. It's smaller, it's less stringent, it's less strict than the in-competition list. To me, that whole notion's idiotic. This isn't basketball, this isn't football / soccer, where you're kicking a ball or you're shooting hoops. You're punching people in the face in this business. You're taking punches, you're cutting weight, you're dehydrating yourself. And why I like VADA and why I will continue to support them and say they are not only the best drug testing in boxing, but in sports, is because they have one list 365 days a year. There's no in competition and out of competition because, let's be honest, it's stupid in boxing because are you really ever out of competition? If you're a prize fighter, you're supposed to be training year-round, and that includes sparring, that includes keeping your weight down. So any substance that gives you energy, that gets more oxygen into your system, gets the blood flowing more, helps you cut weight, any of that is aiding you, even if it's aiding you in training in between fight camps. So I like what VADA does, and they simply test and report. They test and report. They have nothing to do with the adjudication process after that. They're the best we have, guys. And for Demetrius Andrade, I understand why him and his team wanted Billy Joe Saunders to do VADA testing. And if I was a fighter or representing any fighter, I would want the opponent for my fighter and my fighter's opponent to be doing VADA testing. The best we have in the sport, the strictest as far as what's on the prohibited list. It's WADA's prohibited list. It's just their in-competition prohibited list, 365 days a year. Victor Conti, in a recent interview, is an expert, one of the foremost experts in the field of anti-doping, said that, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but the drug that was in Billy Joe Saunders' system is way more stronger and way more beneficial specifically for a fighter than clenbuterol. So just putting that out there, guys. We'll talk more about that in detail. One other thing I'll hit on real quick. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, finally official for the Staples Center December 1st here in Los Angeles. I don't know if that pay-per-view undercard is going to have that featherweight unification fight between Gary Russell Jr. and Leo Santa Cruz. It's looking like it will not, but it will likely have Keith Thurman on there, probably Gervonta Davis, possibly in layup fights. I don't know. I'm not so sold on or so sure about how that undercard is going to look. However, Adonis Stevenson, Alexander Gvozdyk fighting up in Canada the same day. That will likely be on regular Showtime and lead into the Showtime pay-per-view. That is an awesome fight. One of the better fights that could be made right now in boxing. And it might not determine the #1 light heavyweight in the world, but easily the top 2 or 3 light heavyweight in the world, depending on how that fight plays out. You guys know I favor the nail in that one, the Ukrainian. I think he's going to finally take that WBC title from Adonis Stevenson. So let's see. I'm trying to think of anything else real quick that I could hit on. But look, I like the Deontay Wilder-Tyson Fury fight. I think it's going to be a good, solid heavyweight scrap. I'm not so sure that fight belongs in Los Angeles, but apparently the venue is booked in New York, I think for some political thing that week. So I think that fight between Wilder and Fury would have done better in New York. I think it belonged there. I think the UK fans would have rather traveled to New York than Los Angeles. But in December, the weather here in LA will be way better than the weather in New York. So it makes a lot of sense. I'm just glad that fight's not in Las Vegas. Didn't belong there. And just with all the drama related to some of the bigger fights in Vegas recently, I don't want to see big fights like that go to Vegas anymore. I just don't. One last thing, how could I forget? HBO, out of boxing. Those of you who follow my work and listen to the podcast, you guys know I've been saying the writing's been on the wall. HBO has had one foot in the grave and one foot out of the grave for the last couple years. And 2018 has just been abysmal. And I don't give a shit how Peter Nelson spins it. He could say, we've had the biggest pay-per-view of the year. Yeah, generally speaking, for the last however many years, HBO's had the biggest fight, the biggest event of the year, but it's been on pay-per-view. You take the top 10 fights on HBO every year, the top 10 fights on Showtime every year, and look at the relative cost to fans. HBO's been charging a hell of a lot more for what they've been providing you. Now, they've had the best fighters in the sport for the most part, but when Bob Arum and Top Rank left to go to ESPN, that cut their stable at HBO in half. And basically, the Golden Boy was there with Canelo. That's your only star fighter you got from Golden Boy. And then you had a couple other promoters. You know, main events with Sergey Kovalev until he lost to Andre Ward. Then Ward retired. Now Ward was doing commentary, and there was just a bunch of Max Kellerman filleting Andre Ward during the broadcast. The commentary team never quite gelled to me. I thought when Andre Ward stuck to X's and O's, he did a good job. But when it got to him including himself in it, in the fight too much, that rubbed fans the wrong way. Max Kellerman with the political diatribes and all that rubbed fans the wrong way. It just got really, really ugly at HBO. And Larry Merchant put out a press release this week in response to HBO's statement. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but basically saying something like, we were once a young pup, like a prospect, then a contender, then a champion, then a long reigning all-time great champion, and then a has-been. And he used the word has-been. He used the term has-been. And HBO really did become a has-been. And again, however the hell Peter Nelson wants to spin it, bottom line is, it had everything to do with the competition. It had everything to do with the declining ratings and the fact that HBO is no longer the only show in town. They didn't have a stranglehold on the industry. And you go back to the 80s, even much of the 90s. I'm talking globally, HBO had a stranglehold. If you were a fighter in any part of the world, you wanted to get on HBO. That has not been the case for a while now. You could stay over in the UK and be on Sky and do very, very well. You saw what the Klitschko's did in Germany on the network over there. Was it RTL, I think? Over in Japan, what they're doing, the promoters over there. And then right here in America on Showtime and now on ESPN, you have these apps with DAZN. HBO just couldn't compete because HBO wants to put everything on pay-per-view with their star fighters. Well, when the guys across the street are putting their star fighters on the regular network TV, be it Showtime, which is a premium cable network or whatever, but you don't have to order, generally speaking, Showtime pay-per-view to see Deontay Wilder, to see Keith Thurman. You just get that in your monthly subscription, and then on top of that, you're getting fights on their YouTube channel, on their Facebook channel, you're getting all these interactive shows, you're getting all this extra programming. HBO's priority isn't there, man. HBO's priority right now is political propaganda, pushing, a certain political agenda, social justice warrior stuff, documentaries. They'd much rather spend a ton of money producing a Serena Williams documentary and promoting that. They're coming out with like the 5th or 6th Muhammad Ali documentary soon that they've had. I swear in the last decade, they've had 5 or 6 Muhammad Ali specials, but they don't bring back legendary nights. You don't bring back, when's the last time you saw prospects being built up on HBO? Or even baby contenders becoming champions on HBO? You think back to HBO Boxing After Dark, what it was in the 90s and all that. Man, those days are long gone. So while I'm sad to see HBO go, and I am thankful for the memories, they didn't leave at their prime, right? Their career, and they're well past their prime. They've passed the torch over to the other networks. I'm excited to see where the business goes from here, because now we have boxing on ESPN, which it belongs on. It's a sports network. Showtime making a substantial commitment to boxing. You see their recent deal with PBC. It's coming back to Fox with PBC. You have these digital platforms, ESPN Plus, DAZN. Man, this is exciting. My hope is that Jim Lampley, who I think is one of the best of all time to do it, stays out of boxing. He had his time. I don't want to see Lampley try to get in at DAZN like Michael Buffer did. That to me is uncomfortable. I don't want to see Max Kellerman get a job at ESPN and replace Joe Tessitore or something like that. The HBO crew is done. They decided to get out of boxing. They can stay out of boxing. Do I think that they're occasionally going to come in and do an occasional show? Maybe you see a fight card on HBO every now and then, a special HBO boxing thing once or twice a year. Yeah, I do think that will happen. So it would not surprise me. It wouldn't be totally out of left field if somebody like Canelo Alvarez signed a 3-fight deal with HBO, and you saw him fight twice a year, or three times a year maybe, but 2 of them were pay-per-view on HBO. Something like that wouldn't surprise me if you see a one-off here and there. But they're out of the business, man. And honestly, I think it's a good thing at this point. we need to get boxing off the premium cable networks. If it is on premium cable, like what you see over in the UK with Sky and all that, but because they do everything on pay-per-view, the big cards over there. But here in America, on Showtime, that's premium cable, but you get so much for your subscription. If you're subscribing to Showtime for boxing, you are being taken care of and getting your money's worth as a boxing consumer on that network. You haven't been on HBO for a long time. So those are my initial thoughts. Anyway, guys, I'll stop rambling here and try to get my ass to the gym and sweat off some of the beer I drank at this wedding over the weekend. And let me know if you guys want a TNC Wednesday when I get back to Atlanta, or do you want just a big episode next week? And also, definitely plan on doing more of the live fight party things. That was a lot of fun doing that for the Canelo Golovkin replay. If I don't get back out here in LA for Wilder and Fury, definitely doing a live fight party for that fight, for that card. But I'm going to try to get out here for that, right? Obviously, I want to get back to LA anytime I can. Anyway, guys, I'll see you at the fights, and let me know about TNC, all right? Montero on Rooftops, out.